Hello, everyone. I'm Celeste Headlee. I'm the host of the Conference for Women podcast, Women Amplified, and I'm also the moderator for today's live Q&A with Elsa Kingsbury, Senior Talent Acquisition Partner at Hologic. So today, the Massachusetts Conference for Women Virtual Career Fair is bringing top employers together with job seekers from all across the state. So if you're looking for a job, or maybe you're just curious about what might be out there, you're in the right place. I am joined today by a talent acquisitions leader who brings more than 10 years of recruiting and sales experience, Elsa Kingsbury. Over the next 30 minutes, she'll answer your questions live about the job search process and give you the inside scoop on the hiring process from a recruiter's perspective. And you can ask questions using the chat feature in real time and get an answer. So first of all, thank you so much for being with us here today. Can you tell us a little bit, just to start off, about not only yourself, but your role at Hologic?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Celeste. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. So I'm originally from Guadalajara, Mexico. I moved to California when I was 14 years old. And I mentioned that because that's a big part of my identity. And, my family's still all in Mexico. I'm the only one that remains here. I graduated from Fresno State and now live in San Diego. I'm a senior talent acquisition partner at Hologic. Have been here for 3 years. I have 8.5 years of recruiting experience. And I have recruited for a wide range of positions and industries, from high volume call center type roles within higher education to more traditional corporate positions, HR, administrative, as well as sales, marketing, communications, clinical lab, and manufacturing operations in med device. As a recruiter, I get to meet, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. As a recruiter, I get to meet amazing people and get to learn about what they do. But what I enjoy the most is being there with them side by side and making a difference as they get through their journey of starting their dream job. So I'm very happy to be here, paying it forward and helping those of you that are seeking for career opportunities, and maybe there might be something for you here at Hologic.
So we're very glad to have you here, and there are always so many questions for recruiters, so we might as well just launch right in. We'll start with this question from Jessica, who says, what advice would you give to someone coming from a related but different part of the healthcare industry? This has been a question, Elsa, that we get a lot about transitioning. If your resume reflects one type of experience, how do you transition?
So when I get resumes like that I see where there's relevant experience from what they're doing, I always look for a cover letter that will give me a little bit more information, where they can expand on why they're applying. Sometimes it might not be clear the relationship there. So I'm a big fan of writing that in your cover letter and explaining why you're looking to make the transition, connecting the dots almost on what you've done, and how that's going to help you, or how you're going to leverage that experience in the role that you're applying to.
Okay, so we have this question from Vandana, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who says, I have 16 plus years of experience in finance and want to transition into biopharma. Any advice? So this is similar. And I wonder if you could go just a little bit deeper into specifics on not just the cover letter, but is there a way to structure your resume? Is there something that you want to make sure that you mention during an interview if you're transitioning from one industry to another?
Yeah, and I think, and she doesn't provide exactly what she does, because we have finance teams, right, within biopharma companies, device, medical technology companies. So if you have, again, she doesn't say what she's doing in her work, but I would recommend looking at what is the posting looking for, right? It always mentions requirements, type of experience. Sometimes an ideal candidate must have XYZ, and really try to make your resume reflect that. Almost going bullet point by bullet point, like, okay, do I have that? Where did I do that? and using the same language that's on the job posting and making sure that is in the body of your resume. Um, Sometimes, terms are different in different industries. So if what you're using is not something as common for the industry that you're going after, it might be missed. Our ATS or applicant tracking system doesn't do this, but some have AI capabilities, so they're just searching for keywords. So if you don't have those keywords that are mirroring what you're seeing on the posting, then your resume might not stand out to that AI software.
So this is similar. Another one of the recruiters suggested pretty much exactly what you've said here, but she suggested even starting your resume with these bullet points of like pulling out the keywords from the qualifications list, and then putting right at the top your experience that relates to that qualification. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yes. So whether it's in the summary of your at the top of your resume, or just making sure that as you're talking about your responsibilities under, your experience, that you are pulling and using those phrases, um, and making sure that you are also highlighting like what you achieved in that position and not just listing keywords, but adding substance behind those keywords. And
Okay, so
another thing too,
yeah,
I would
great.
suggest, even going on Indeed and searching for those positions within that industry and seeing what other companies in the industry, how they're describing that position, to give you an idea and kind of get your brain going on like, okay, what are some other ways I can represent my experience in this industry that I'm trying to break into.
Interesting. Okay, Carrie asks this. What do you think about extra steps in the hiring process, like giving a presentation or delivering a sample plan or writing a letter of intent?
So we do some of that for some of our positions. The roles we hire for here in our San Diego office, when they're leadership level roles, we do ask to have a presentation, and this is used to show different soft skills, right? Just how comfortable you are in like speaking in front of people, your communication skills, attention to detail on the presentation. Sometimes you are going to be doing this as a leader, right? Like presenting to the division president, and performance for your team and things like that. So I think depending on the role, it is appropriate, and it is looking for further information, and again, for you to show some of those soft skills that you're going to be needing for the role.
So here's a really common question. Christine asks, do I have to stick to a one pager for a resume? I have a lot of work experience.
Yes, I'm glad I got that, because
Yeah.
that is a myth. We're no longer faxing resumes or mailing them in. We're just scrolling down. Some managers do print them out. Um, but I would say don't limit yourself to one page. Um, I would say a reasonable resume would be 3 pages, and maybe limit your experience going back maybe 15, 20 years. Um, if there are roles that might not be as relevant that fall within that time, you can list them and list what your title was. You might not necessarily need to list what you did under that role if it's not going to be applicable for the position you're applying for. Um, but you don't want to completely take it out because it would give a sense that there was a large gap maybe of employment. Um, so I would suggest that to help keep that resume to maybe like 3, 4 pages, maybe max.
Okay, here's a question from Joanne who says, what advice do you have for career changers who can't exactly transform their LinkedIn profile without tipping off their current employer?
That is a tricky question. I would say there is a way to, in the settings, there's a way to not notify your network when you make a change. So definitely go and check that out. And maybe start doing subtle changes, like start with just updating maybe a little bit of your previous job before you were there. Um, and I think that would make it less obvious that you're out there looking. Maybe just write a summary, on your page that highlights some of the things that um, the positions that you're looking to apply are requiring. And again, just start making those subtle changes, and just make sure that your network is not going to be notified of when you do that.
Okay, Elizabeth asks this. If there are two open positions at a company in different departments, but one is lower level than the other, would you advise applying for both or just applying for the higher level one?
Mhm. So I see this often, and we have, departments across our divisions or a same division across different teams that require some of the same skills. Um, if the positions are similar, but one seems more senior than the other, I would say apply for both. If they're very different, and one's more senior and one's more junior, but they have nothing to do with each other as it relates to your experience, then I would apply to the one that you fit the closest to. Um, there's many times too where we might be open for the right candidate, either to hire above what's posted or lower it if we're seeing, okay, this person has a lot of potential. They might not be a senior right now, but in a year and a half from now, they have the potential. Let's take a chance on these individuals.
Okay, Farzana asks, I want to switch to IT. I have experience in documentation, installation, maintenance, and report writing in the pharma industry. I'm working on a degree in computer science. Any other ideas? And how can I improve my resume to switch into IT?
I would say if there are any organizations you're involved in or volunteer at, could be a church, could be, again, just a professional organization, raise your hand to start giving IT support, right? If it's at a lower level, and you can then use that information on, you can have a section under volunteer or related experience where you're starting to apply what you're learning, through getting a certification or whatnot. I think people underestimate what they're involved in and maybe don't represent it on their resume, um, as a way to present it. Like, these are skills and tools and things that you're doing that are still applicable for work, even if it was on a volunteer capacity. Um, so that's kind of what I would recommend. Start getting your hands on maybe outside of a professional setting, through some of these organizations that you might be involved in.
That's such great advice. And I don't think I've ever heard that particular idea before,
Mhm.
but it really is a great way to do that. Jean Marie has a question, and this is one we've been hearing a lot, especially since the pandemic, is questions for older people who are applying for jobs. There's a lot of fear about age discrimination. And so Jean Marie says, any advice for people who are over 55 and looking to transition to a new career?
So again, I would say with your resume, right, like going back maybe 20 years or something like that. Um, and really, this is a tough one because I don't know, why people are passing on certain um, resumes. If you're making a drastic change from something that you've done before, again, I'm a big fan of including either on the cover letter or a couple, sentences at the beginning of your resume that kind of paints a picture to the recruiter of what you're trying to do or why you're trying to go that way. Leveraging your network as well, whether it's somebody that you already know or trying to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, that's in the industry that you're going after, and just picking their brain. How did you break into this industry, and seeing what they did. But again, leveraging your network, it's, I think, a big tool that anybody can use.
Is it okay to remove maybe the dates from your education or some of the dates from earlier experience to some of those markers that might indicate your age?
I would think so. I don't. Um, I honestly I if I have a position that has an education requirement, I'm just seeing if they have that, right? Like the date is not relevant, as long as the degree was awarded. Um, so yes, I would say that would be a good suggestion as well.
Okay, Melanie asks, if I'm not excited about moving forward, how do I withdraw from the hiring process without burning any bridges?
Mhm. I say honesty is the best way to go. Most likely you have a contact in talent acquisition or HR that you've been working with. So I would just be honest with them and let them know, hey, after finding out more about this, I don't feel like this is the right role for me for XYZ, or I decided at this time I no longer want to pursue the opportunity. Um, I would say that is something that we appreciate greatly, people just being upfront rather than continuing through the process and we're excited thinking they're still wanting to join, getting to offer stage and then finding out they don't want to move forward when they knew maybe 2 interviews ago. um, so honesty is the best policy, and the recruiter, HR, hiring manager would appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the first time I've ever gotten the question doing these recruiter sessions. And it's such a good question. As a hiring
Hmm.
person, there have been times when people have known they don't want a job and let us pay for their trip to, from out
Yeah.
of state and all those other things. So much better to know.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. Um, Iona, I hope I pronounced that properly, asks this. I want to relocate and keep putting that in my cover letters, but I think my current address is making recruiters dismiss me. I don't want to use
Hmm.
a fake address in the city where I want to relocate, but maybe I should.
No, I'm glad this came up too, because this happens a lot where I might get applicants that are out of state. There's no cover letter. At least she's including that, which I was going to advise at least have something in your cover letter. You can take it a step further and include it on top of your resume. Just one sentence, looking to relocate to this location, and call out the location if you already have plans to relocate, or maybe you're getting married and that's where you're relocating. I would be specific about that so there's no doubt to the recruiter that you are potentially going to be able to, or that you could be considered because you will be at the location where we're hiring. um, One thing on addresses, I, you no longer need to put your full address, simply putting the location and the state where you're at. I have had some candidates that don't put their location like on their resume, but it is on their profile. And then if they included information on the resume that they're willing to relocate, then I'm more prone to reach out to them, even if there was no location on the resume. So again, just calling it out right from the beginning on top of your resume after your name and your contact information, I would put targeting to relocate to, San Diego by June or whatever. If you already have a date, you could kind of put that on there.
So the next question is about dealing with breaks in your resume that because of pregnancy or childcare. And I feel like I have to couch this by saying that, I mean, we all know that women shouldn't, or anybody should not pay a price for staying home to take care of kids. But we know that statistically speaking, that's exactly what happens. That
Mhm.
oftentimes you're not considered for a job. It's seen as a black mark on your resume, or you'll even get a lower salary if you do get hired. So, what do you think is the solution to this? How do you handle, gaps in your career because of childcare?
Mhm. I have seen this on resumes, and I think it eliminates the wondering, right? Like what happened. But I have seen it for men and women that they list, they have their history, I don't know, let's say 5, 6 years of experience, and then they have the period of time that they were out of work, and it says, might say at home raising my children or something along those lines. and then continues to, if they've worked since then or they're looking to get back into the workforce. So I would say absolutely it's okay to put it on there. And again, it eliminates wondering like, oh, what happened during these 3 years or 4 years that they weren't working. It kind of eliminates that questioning of ours. If during that time you were involved in classroom volunteering again at nonprofit organizations, absolutely put that on there as well under your experience, because again, the skills that you're using during those in those volunteer type of roles are applicable to the professional world. So if you are currently on maternity leave and you're taking maybe a few years off, start thinking about that. What are some things you can get involved in your community that are going to keep your skills sharp and up to date, and something that you're going to be able to include in your resume?
So we're getting really great questions today, and this is another one that I'm so glad someone has asked. Abby asks this: if I don't get the job, is it okay to ask why? How do I go about asking, why didn't I get this? I mean, this is so helpful because getting that kind of feedback, did I say the wrong thing in my interview? Did my resume have a mistake in it? That would be so helpful.
Yes, and this is, I would say, the toughest part as a recruiter, right? Like telling these candidates that you've been talking with sometimes for weeks, almost every day at times, and letting them know they didn't get the position. As recruiters, we want to know like specific feedback as well. Sometimes we're not given that, so we're not able to let the candidate know specifics. Unfortunately, not all managers, uh, necessarily share with us to allow us to help the candidate.
Oh, you mean they
But
don't
it's
always know
absolutely
why they
okay.
didn't get it?
Exactly. And sometimes it could be like we really had really strong candidates, and that was it. I do try to make a point to close that gap, and provide feedback when I do have it. But it's absolutely okay to ask. Again, not if a recruiter doesn't respond, they might not know the exact reason. And it could be that it's a really tough job market out there. I would say, especially in our industry, it's very competitive. And I talk to very qualified candidates every day. So these managers don't have an easy job either and making a decision and hiring, because we are seeing many qualified top candidates.
So Christine asks this: I recently dissolved my business in order to pursue a career pivot. How do I best communicate that in my LinkedIn profile or resume so it doesn't look like I'm just unemployed?
Having a summary on your LinkedIn profile speaking to that, and maybe why you're looking to pivot. Same thing on your resume, having on the top, and you don't necessarily need a cover letter for this, but just having it on top of your resume, and explaining that, or having like a brief sentence or two that speak to that. I would say it's appropriate.
Um, Sky says, do you have advice for a recent graduate who's interested in becoming a recruiter?
Yes, so I got my start recruiting for an IT staffing company. Usually, staffing companies are recruiting fresh grads, and it's a great way to learn the art of recruiting, and learning applicant tracking systems, and the search like strategies, etc. So um, it's hard, I would say, to break into corporate recruiting as a fresh grad and with no recruiting experience. Um, but going through a staffing agency, they're always looking for fresh grads, and again, it's a great way to get some training and recruiting experience under your belt.
That makes perfect sense. We have about 5 minutes left and more questions to ask you, so we're going to try to get through all of them. Janika, and again, I really hope I'm pronouncing everybody's lovely name the right way, asks this: is it okay to list online courses, like a LinkedIn course, on your resume? And if so, how do you do that appropriately?
I would say make sure that it is. I would say yes, you can list them, but make sure that they're relevant to the jobs that you're applying to, um, and maybe highlight what are some of the like the takeaways, right? Or how maybe that course helped you um, elevate your skills with, like there's some that I've taken that are around sourcing. So that's something that I would list that I took that course, right, on strategies on how to source on LinkedIn Recruiter. So just make sure that they are relevant to the positions that you're going after.
Yeah, that makes sense. But is it, would you put them with your education? Like, here's my bachelor's, here's my master's, here's this online course I took?
Yes, that would be the appropriate, I guess, area of the resume to list it. And I would say that would be helpful to like if you're trying to break into, like that specific industry, or if you're making a career change, again, to kind of show, or if you have been, you've had a break, so those situations that we talked about, um, that would be appropriate to seek those types of growth opportunities and listing them on their education.
Seems like that might also be a good idea for people who are hoping to transition to a new career. They could also take an online course. How you
Exactly.
asks this: for working professionals who are also in school, is it best to apply through school recruiting or experienced recruiting?
I guess I'm not sure if I understand the question. Are they saying is it best?
I think that sometimes schools will have placement services. Like if you're in school, they'll have a placement services that helps you get a
Mhm.
job. I may be asking this, get the wrong thing here, but it sounds to me like they're saying, is it better to go through the school to apply for jobs or just apply on your own?
I would say if there are positions that you find on your own, right, that they're not maybe listed on the career site through your school, go ahead and apply. The ones that, because sometimes companies will have maybe an existing relationship with a higher education, um, uh, with a university, college. So if most likely, then that college is going to have those jobs on their career services page. So if it's a job that it's listed through that, again, most likely they have a relationship with that organization. So in that instance, I would go through the school, um, through the school site, if that makes sense, to apply for those jobs. Um, Most of the time, they end up in the applicant tracking system anyway of the of the employer.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left, which is probably just enough time to do one more question here. Um, Bethany asks, how can I demonstrate qualities like being growth minded on my resume? Do I just say that I'm growth minded? How do you show someone?
I would say think about what in your current role or past positions would demonstrate that, and make sure you're listing that on there, if that makes sense. So, um, and I guess I can't
But
think
I
of
have
something off the top of
experience
my
with.
head.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of things that might tell someone automatically that I'm growth minded, right? Like, I suppose if I expanded my skills, if I changed from one groove within a company and went from one position to another, are those the kind of things that tell you as a recruiter that I am interested in growth, that I'm good with growth?
Yeah, or even like what do you do beyond what your responsibilities are of your
Mm.
day to day? So speaking about volunteered to lead our team's engagement team, helped organizing our department's professional services, or initiated, some type of group or team that, it's helping the team get stronger, or you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
speaking
absolutely.
to
The
things like
DEI
maybe that
committee,
you
the
what
yeah.
exactly. And that shows like you're looking for growth beyond like your day to day of the job, um, and that you want more responsibility. You seek responsibility outside of your day to day duties.
So we are out of time, even though I know that we could keep going and get more questions. I want to say
Yes.
thank you so much to Elsa. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your advice and honesty, and for all of your insights.
Thank you. No, this was great. Hopefully, we helped some folks out there, and hope to be back again next year.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope we helped people too. On behalf of the Massachusetts Conference for Women, we really hope everyone enjoyed today's virtual career fair Ask the Recruiter session. If you haven't done it already, I really urge you to upload your resume. That's how you maximize your interactions with participating employers like Hologic today. So we wish you all the luck on your job search. Have a great day.